All right, Art of Everclear, Doug of Hoobastank. Hi, it's Kevin. How many millions of records do you think are in this room right now? I read you have sold over 10 million. The first time
You're allowed to do the Wikipedia yourself, right? You don't need to. There's no fact checking there.
I know, but think about that, right? The first time, you want to know my favorite art story? You came on an old show I used to do in New York. I had different color hair back then. And
how old were you? Like 12?
No, well, this is what I love about this guy, because he, like, some artists, you know, they come in and they just, it's like a pep rally. Art really makes you earn it when you interview Art. So you come on the show and you performed that day. It was around I think you did like a 20th for Afterglow, and I'm there and I'm so nervous, like my first year in the business, and this is one of my favorite bands of all time, and I'm doing this big, you know, speech to introduce you guys, and I say that the album went double platinum, and Art's behind me going to the main camera going, three times platinum. So you guys, I mean, and then the Sparkle and Fade went double.
For what it is.
Of course.
I mean, let's just say between our two bands, millions of records.
Millions of records. I think it's close to 20. Fair, right? I was trying to big you up.
Yeah, dude, I don't. That's something. I don't speak. I don't. I never was really like on top of that.
Right.
Our managers here too. I'm not on top of anything. Like as far as like. Sales and streams now and all everything gets sent to me and I go, oh cool, and
right.
I kind of just like.
Well, that's even how you were with the TikTok thing. It seemed like TikTok thing was like a nice thing that happened. You didn't really care.
No, I didn't have any TikTok knowledge prior to that.
Right.
And I don't claim to, at this point still.
Now, what was your relationship with sort of like accolades and plaques and things like that back then? Did you have a similar experience, or did you really care about it?
I'm coming from a different perspective. I'm coming from like, I'm the guy that's putting up posters and promoting punk rock shows in Santa Monica in the late 70s, and you know, because there wasn't a club there to get bands like the Dickies, and I booked the Dickies into Samo High, Santa Monica High School to play the quad, and I got really yelled at by the principal, you know. for doing that, you know, and then I was across the street selling drugs, you know, in the morning before people went to school. So I know I could tell you within probably 10% worldwide what we've sold.
Right.
I know because I basically kind of co-manage my band. I've always co-managed my band, and when I life coach people, and I'm finishing my BA.
We're a couple weeks away now.
My MA.
From the certification.
Yeah. Well, actually a couple months.
Okay.
But yeah, I took the final thing the other day. I think I did pretty good. But point is, I mean, I want to work with creatives. And one of the things I want to do is warn creatives against management. No offense. And I don't want to be a manager. I've had people try to get me. No, I don't mean that, because I think a good manager and a good day-to-day manager is the best thing you can have in the world. But I think that people, the way the industry was when I grew up, coming up, it was, you know, big fat white guys, you know, old white guys literally smoking cigars, telling you what's going to go on. And we got the tail end of that when money was just shooting out of the ground.
What do you think is the bigger evil in the music industry, management or labels?
Labels.
Why?
Because the way they're set up as basically as most corporations are now, you know, it's profit based.
Right.
It's not creative based. It's not even, and I understand everybody needs to make a profit, but to me, with a real business, when you're dealing with creatives, you have to figure in a certain amount of investment into developing that act, right?
Absolutely.
And building up that act, like bands like that I loved growing up, like Aerosmith. Their first record sold 100,000 records, and it was right around in New England. Their second one sold about 285, 300. And then the third one, they had a hit song. That's when it went, but they didn't get dropped. If you're on a major label today and your first record sells 100,000 records, or the comparative, the equivalent in streams, you're gone, man.
Yeah. Well, the development is almost entirely on the artist today.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, what a deal they have now. It's like basically, here, we're going to give you a little upfront money to make a record, but we own the majority of the profits and all your work in perpetuity forever. Really?
Crazy.
Nah, I don't like that. That doesn't sound like good. And when you tour and you do other stuff,
we want some of that too.
We want that too. 10% of that. We call it a 360 deal.
Yeah.
I call it blood sucking.
Well, what's
But,
wild too about
no.
labels is how they can also miss things, right? Like probably your biggest song, objectively, The Reason, right? No one even wanted that as a single.
Not in the band. I mean that you know the Dog and Pony Show. You go, you write a record, you record it. A&R guy comes in and out. Luckily, we had a great A&R guy who was really hands off. Like he just cool. Nothing's on fire in here, and he would leave, and he wasn't like do this, do that. And then after the record's done, it's like everybody has a powwow and they listen to the album, and everybody like speculates what'll be single 1 and possibly single 2, or you know, and if you're
Right.
lucky, anything more than that. And yeah, we just kind of that song on that record, all of our albums, whatever, you know, it was only 2 at that point, but even the stuff we did prior to having a record deal, we always had mellow songs, you know, like and so we kind of felt like The Reason was just that. It was an album track that we were very proud of. It was like the lighter side of Hoobastank, you know. So I remember management at the time and the band going, no, like, you know, we picked a couple songs and that wasn't it. And
A&R didn't flag it either.
not our guy at the time, no.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then what winds up breaking that record?
I don't know the story specifically, but I do remember going up to having a meeting in New York. We had just released, or we were on the first single, and it was about that time when they're like, okay, it's been 6 weeks or whatever it is. Do we want to keep pushing? Are we going to throw some more money at this, or are we going to go to something else? And we wanted to keep going with it. You know, we felt it represented the band musically, at least what we were doing. And they had like, well, there's another thing happening here. There's some stations, I want to say maybe in Utah or something, that are starting to play The Reason unsubmitted. They're just starting to play the song.
Yeah, that's a great indicator right there.
Yeah, and it's starting to spread. We need to jump on this, and we fought it. I mean, we fought it.
Because they're
really
probably
bad.
different formatted stations than the stations that
we're
were
just
playing
like,
the first single.
It's not the time, you know, whatever. We just didn't want to do it. And at some point, we just said, fuck it, we can't. The momentum was building, and we just kind of jumped on it. Like the TikTok thing, we just jumped on it. We're like, okay.
What year was this?
2004.
4?
Yeah.
2004.
Well, it's one of I worked at Billboard. That's where you came on that Billboard show back in the day. And that was always, you know, we have these Song of the Summer retrospectives, and that's one of the very few down-tempo songs of the summer. That was like the number 1 or number 2 song of the summer for 04, and it's like thought of as Billboard as this iconic song because it sort of debunked the yearly trend of it's got to be an up-tempo, it's got to be like a beach anthem, and The Reason just, you know, went absolutely crazy that year. It also had that, I guess, that moment on the Friends finale.
Right, which I think I got more people coming up to me asking or mentioning. I saw that.
TV.
And
Crazy.
more than
Dude,
anything
back
else
then?
we'd ever done. And I don't even watch Friends. So
Yeah.
they're like, oh, we saw it in your Friends. I'm like, awesome, you know,
Right.
cool. And
So you don't hear about that? I mean, it's probably just such a blur at the time, but like, I mean, that's one of the
you
that
heard it. You knew
that and
about it.
Seinfeld.
no, I knew the show. I just
No,
don't-
I'm saying though, like that you don't get a word from management at the time, like, yo,
No,
we,
absolutely. I at the they
We're gonna
go,
get this
hey,
sync
they
in."
want to use your song in this huge show, which I know was huge for the end.
Right.
And I'm like, great, cool. Like if everything works, like, you know, go ahead. Yeah, let's do it.
Eyeballs is always a good thing. Ears and eyeballs. People listening.
Right.
Well, you guys got so much crap for that sort of mindset though, because then when you guys signed to Capitol, right? Didn't everybody in Portland just crap on you guys?
Well, everybody in Portland crapped on us anyways.
Right.
Because my wife had an affair. We were boyfriend-girlfriend. I was living in San Francisco, and I was sleeping with everybody and their sister anyways. But she slept with a guy in a band, and when she didn't leave him, you know, stop seeing him. Well, she stopped seeing him to move to San Francisco to be with me, and you know, he hated me. And then he started telling everybody in Portland. So, like it or not, the truth about it is that people in Portland, we've sold more records in the market in Oregon. We're like the biggest selling band ever out of Oregon. The overwhelming majority of people in Portland love us.
Yeah.
But there's some squeaky wheels that at the time were the hipposaw of Portland, and they didn't like us. They didn't like the fact that I came to town from California, because a lot of people were coming from California up to Portland because it's cheap to live there.
Yeah.
I came there, you know, poor, on welfare. I had a pregnant girlfriend. You know, I was still married to somebody else. You know, I I used to be very dysfunctional, and
Yeah.
I was like, what, 3 years sober at the time?
Right.
So, you know, people didn't like me. I had a California license plate on my car, and people would cut me off and give me the finger. And when I changed it, everyone was nice.
And then the big single's Santa Monica, so that must have really it's been
but
great for
Heroin
the Portland
was
relations.
huge in Portland.
Yeah.
Our first single was huge in like 12 markets, but it wouldn't get played in the South or anywhere else because of the word heroin.
Yeah.
And we were getting 3 different combined stations in Detroit and one in Windsor, Canada, which fed Detroit as well. We were getting about 150 spins a day
Wow.
in Portland. I mean, in Detroit. And it sold like 25 records the first week. And I went to Capitol and I go, what's going on? And they go, well, it's just not reacting. And I started calling record stores. And then I flew to Detroit and went to record stores. And everyone I went to is like, man, they won't send me any records. I keep asking for SEMA, which was our distribution unit for Capitol at the time, for records. And I got on the phone with the president of Capitol at the time, who still hates me, I think, with a record store guy and a distribution guy from SEMA. And I'm like, why is my record not in Detroit when you're getting over 100 spins a day?
Right.
I mean, a day.
Yeah.
It was like a #1 hit on 4 different stations. And but Santa Monica was that song that everybody thought was going to be the single. But we didn't get signed.
But you didn't have it. Yeah, you didn't even have it when you got signed.
I hadn't written it when we got signed. They didn't.
Same story.
Yeah. That's the way it
Really?
should be.
With our debut album, yeah.
Did you guys get signed as individuals?
We didn't. No, I mean, no. We got signed as as individuals. We didn't put Hoobastank as the name.
How does that like affect the politics of a band? Because I've never heard of that before.
No, it wasn't 4 separate contracts.
Oh, okay.
No, it was just a contract with our names on it, not a band name.
Oh.
You didn't have a band name?
No, we did. We were Hoobastank from '94 to 2000.
What were you
But
going to rename it as?
I don't.
Do you remember?
know. I don't know because we're like shit. We started when we were 17, 18 years old. We
Right.
were playing house parties and cafes and teen centers and any place that they would let us plug in, right? And the name is this nonsensical high school name we made up. We had 2 saxophones in the band. It was like a combination of like funk and ska and metal, and it was all over the place.
Right.
But it was so much fucking fun, you know? That's all we did. It was just for fun. While people were partying on the weekends, me and my guitar player were in my mom's garage with a Tascam, like trying to record shit, you know? And so we were that band for 6 years, and we had a decent following out here, but we had already regretted naming the band Hoobastank for a while. We're just like, okay, now we just got a record deal. It's our chance to
Change the name?
Yeah, change the name. And I think one of the first shows our A&R guy saw us was just at the Whiskey. And it was a great show, and the crowd was chanting the name and everything. And he came back, and he's like, you guys cannot change it. That was probably the biggest input he ever had, is you guys cannot change the fucking name. He's like, it's too good. It's you guys. And
So he convinced you. You're A&R guy.
yes,
A&R
we were a little, yeah, it isn't the only time I think that we were convinced by record labels to do things. Some okay. It's one of those things where I go, nowadays, I don't know if the band was called something cooler, at least in my estimation, that it wouldn't be woven into the pop culture fabric as much as it is, you know. I know it's name wise it gets it's the punchline for a lot of, you know,
Right.
jokes and stuff like that. But I have thick enough skin. It's never bothered me. I
Yeah.
don't fucking care.
Dude, as long as they're buying the records and listening to music,
it's not even
right?
that. I just don't care. Like I don't care
I agree.
enough to that doesn't bother me. Great, you want okay, it's a punchline. I get it, dude. The band name.
Do you make a living from your band?
Yeah, I'm like, this is the only
When?
job.
You know
this is the
what I
only
mean?
thing I've done for 20 plus years. Like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
you go ahead. It can be the punchline and whatever. What are you doing today?
exactly.
Exactly.
You guys were almost Big White Evil, right?
Pure white evil.
Pure White Evil.
No, that's a fallacy. Actually, Everclear. So the band before Everclear was a really stupid name, and people used to go, "Great band, horrible name." I mean, I'd have
never heard
girls
that
tell
before.
me that. I'm going to take you home tonight. This is when I was in my early 20s.
but can you change?
I'm
Can you
gonna
say
take
you're in a
home,
different band?
But really, that name is horrible, and it was called Color Finger.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Is this part of the cow punk scene?
I don't think that's as bad as Hoobastank, to be honest.
I don't know.
with you.
It's up there. If you know the story where the word comes from, it's pretty bad.
All right.
But that being said, when I moved to Portland, I was going to do one more band. I had a baby. I had no choice. I was on welfare, which I paid back, by the way, and I was going to do one more band. And if that band didn't work, I was going to probably end up moving to LA and work for a label or management company or do something like that. Be in the business, but not be the guy. But I wanted one more shot at it. And it was either going to be Sparkle or Color Finger. Or, excuse me, Sparkle or Everclear. And
I think you made a good choice.
I think it worked.
Yeah.
It worked.
It worked out.
Yeah. And about 2 years in, before we signed, I got a call from the brewery. I forget the name of it. It's outside of St. Louis that actually, or distillery rather, that makes Everclear, the alcohol. And this guy's talking to me. And I later checked him out. He was seriously a senior VP there. And he's like, "Do you boys worship Satan?" I'm like, "No, sir, not at all. I'm a Christian, kind of." But I didn't say kind of. And he's like, "Okay, well, then you guys can use the name." And we got it signed off by them that we could use the name.
Incredible.
That's the only criteria that you had to be
other than
met.
music. It's a true story. Yeah, it's absolute true story.
There's no Hoobastank IPAs out there, so you didn't have that problem, right?
See?
No, nobody.
And if you
nobody
worship,
asked him. Yeah.
see, you can worship Satan all you want.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hell,
that's,
Satan.
You're free
I'm
to.
free. That's total freedom.
We were talking about just the power of TV, that Friends finale, that placement. You know, a video like Father of Mine was just on MTV every single day when everybody watched MTV. And I just heard recently that Spike Lee almost did that video.
No, not Spike Lee's. Spike, what was his name?
Jones.
Not Spike Jones. No, it was I forget. There was two guys who were doing like hip hop.
Right.
Two black guys who were doing hip hop.
Was it Hype Williams?
Hype Williams.
Hype Williams.
So Hype Williams almost did it.
Yeah, it was either Hype Williams or Frank. I'm blanking on the guy.
Is it Paul Hunter?
Paul Hunter, thank you. Yeah, the MS catches up with me every now and then. So it was either Paul Hunter or Hype Williams, and they both loved it. I got on phone calls to both of them. Hype couldn't do the video for about 2 months because he was committed, but he wanted to do it. But Paul was like, "I'm all in right now. I'm going to move stuff around. We're going to make this. We're going to do it in the projects where he grew up." He goes, "Write me an idea for the video." And I wrote him basically an idea for the, like a treatment for the video.
Right.
And we got together twice, hammered it out, made the video in like 2 or 3 days. Biggest budget we had ever had up to that point. And it was a big video, right? And but I didn't even think that was going to be a single.
Which song was this?
Father
of
of Mine.
Mine. Because it was too personal. It was so personal. I didn't even know if I was going to make the record. And I came into, like, I have an A&R guy who did A&R me a little bit, and that's a different story about Santa Monica. But with Father of Mine, with that album, after we were already successful, I was insufferable, man. You can tell me anything. I was horrible.
Well, you were already hip to the business, so now you're having artistic success.
Well, and I have full artistic control. That was the deal. When we had like labels coming after us, we had 27 labels coming after us, and I go, "I want this much money," and they're like, "That's not much. I want 3 firm records. I'll give you 2 options, but I want 3 firm records." Okay, that's pretty good. I want this. I want tour support. I want this and that. They're like, "Okay," and I go, "Oh yeah, by the way, I want total creative control, and I'm going to produce all the records." And like 2/3 of those, poof.
That
gone.
was the line crossed for them?
Yeah, for most of them. But there was still like 10 labels left. And they're like, "Okay, what else you got?" I'm like, "Okay, now we can talk." And I went with Capitol because Gary Gersh had just gone over there from Geffen.
Right.
And it had, a lot of success, namely with Nirvana, but with some other acts as well. And I felt like they were hungry. And that was a good place to be.
Did you guys get a lot of crap for being compared to Nirvana early on? Especially like Sparkle and Fade. That was like the whole knock, right? Not the knock, but everyone would say that. And then,
Well, I think it was because we were from the Northwest. We were 3 guys. I was blonde, or bleached blonde, and I screamed a lot. So everyone thought we sounded like Nirvana. And then in 94, 95, we got asked by Foo Fighters to do a show with them in New York. And MTV News, you can see it on YouTube. They're like, Dave's like, I don't think they sound like Nirvana at all. I think they're great. I love their first record, and Kurt liked their first record, and blah, 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 blah. But then he goes on and go, Bush sounds like Nirvana. Bush sounds a lot like Nirvana. And he starts dissing on Bush. But we were just like, you know, if you listen to us, you hear a lot of the country. You know, I still had that cowpunk thing you were talking about. You know, that's still there in my voice.
But was did you find that to be an advantage or a hindrance being compared to Nirvana? Was it a good thing? Did it actually like further the band at the time?
No, it was more of a hindrance.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think kids who listen to music or people who listen to music really give a shit what other people
It was more of a
compare
critics
it to.
thing.
Yeah, it's the hipsters, it's the people in the business, it's the people in the small towns.
Yeah.
Like the sub pop people.
Yeah.
You know, didn't want to talk to us about signing there because, you know, the comparisons to Nirvana. And I remember talking to one of the guys, I don't want to name him, you know, I don't want to shame him out. But I go, did you ever listen to our record? He goes, nope, never listened to it. I go, ever? He goes, yeah, I listened to it later, and we kind of kicked ourselves for not signing you.
Totally.
But
so, like, did you ever go through that, the comparison thing, being compared to another band or being grouped with bands? Or
Well, we grew up in the same neighborhood as Incubus, and I went to high school with the guys in Lincoln Park, and for a second in the late 90s, early, you know, into 2000, I feel like you could throw, you know, trash out your car and hit somebody in a signed band, you know. In our
what
area.
is that like when they just when the suits just come into the territory?
Yeah,
almost?
that's what they're like. Well, is there something going on here musically? And I'm like, no, nothing's going on here musically that isn't going on in a lot of towns, like anywhere, except that when one band breaks, they come in like sharks, like the labels. Like there's blood in the water. We want to scoop up everything that's here. Some of it's going to stick, and some of it's not.
Most of it's not going to stick.
Yeah.
Most of it's not. You're not even going to make a record. And if you make a record, chances are it'll never get out.
Right.
Yeah.
So, we got compared to our buddies in Incubus a lot, and Lincoln Park and stuff like that. And I personally never took it as an insult because A, they're my friends, and B, I think they're awesome, you know, as musicians, and their music's awesome, and I'm a fan. So if you tell me, hey man, you guys sound or similar to this band that you really like, I usually don't go, man, you know, fuck you.
Right.
But I think it's just a very it's lazy. I think it's just really lazy.
It's lazy.
Yeah.
I agree with that 100%. Because we don't sound like Nirvana.
Right.
No,
I never. I recently just heard this.
That's the first time I had ever even heard that, and my head just went, "What?"
Yeah.
No.
They're just looking to compare it to something, group it in a box. I like more recently. I have friends that now we would call alternative artists because alternative radio has changed in the past year or two. But at the time, I remember when I was at Billboard and all this stuff was breaking, like 2017, it was just called emo rap, because there were like trap drums in it, and we had no idea what to call it, right? So there's always going to be some term, or you want to put, you know, the critics or the journalists want to put things in a box,
Of course.
and just compare it to when sometimes the comparisons aren't there.
I get news for you. No one in the Northwest called themselves grunge.
Right.
Ever.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Ever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ever. That was something the guys from the publicist from Sub Pop came up with for the media, and the media just
They gotta
grabbed
call it
onto
something,
it.
man.
Gotta call it something. Yeah.
Did you ever, Doug? Did you ever go through? I don't know if it's imposter syndrome or what you would sort of describe it as, but you guys are, you know, a band that, for largely outside of the ballads, you know, could be grouped in with an Incubus or sort of, you know, these hybrid bands of the time, Lincoln Park, for instance. When you have a song like The Reason Just Explode, right? And you've talked in previous interviews about this fickle audience and sort of being self-aware enough to realize that's what it was at the time, 14-year-olds and their parents, so to speak. What is that sort of, how do you digest that emotionally, where you go, well, wow, they all love this song. It's not entirely what we do.
At the time, what was that? That was like 2004. So we'd been playing at that point for, you know, almost a decade, or over a decade as a band. We had, up to that point, I think, with the first album and where the second album had been going, I felt like our, what's the word I'm looking for right now? Our perception of the band, how we saw ourselves, was how our fans saw us. Like, it matched. This is who we are musically, and these are the fans that we expect to have with this music and with this what we're doing. The trajectory of the band's career seemed to be going as planned. It was tour, single, have some success, tour more, single. Like, it seemed like we were going in the direction that at least I had always envisioned, if I ever didn't envision it. I guess it just seemed like that's how it was going. So a song, I think I've said in other interviews, all our shows were, House of Blues size, small theater size, lots of teenagers, early 20s, rowdy pits, people, me jumping. It was that kind of show. That's how I saw myself. That's the kind of music I listened to or would go see. And then all of a sudden, that song breaks, and now we're playing.
You have girls.
We're playing amphitheaters.
And you have a lot more girls up front.
Now it's, like I said, the parents and these 13, 14, 15-year-old kids, boys and girls, And it's amazing to play these huge venues and stuff like that. But it was definitely a struggle for the band going, this isn't us, really. Like, hi, Mom, hi, kid, Because we would, countless times after every show, we'd be like, wow, you guys are a lot heavier than I thought. Well, what do you know from the band? The reason. And that's it? Well, of course, you're going to be bummed out if you come to one of our shows and that's the only song you know and you think the rest of it's going to be like that.
Right.
So at the time, it was like a double-edged sword. We just didn't know how to manage those expectations. And then, inevitably, like anything in pop, it fizzles out at some point. Or not fizzles out, but it crests and then it comes back down,
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with that is now there's a huge demo of people who are diehard with you up until that point who you've alienated. Now they're like, forget it. These guys are, my mom likes these guys now, or so they're gone. And so those people that you could count on to be at your shows are gone now. And it's kind of like, what the fuck did we do? We didn't.
Did it feel like no man's land?
It's a little bit.
Right?
But you guys were how old were at the average age of the band when you guys got signed?
23 to 25.
So you were 25 to 27 when you had
27,
your first
28, 27, 26, yeah.
That's, wow. And I've guys that are good friends of mine are Eve Six.
Max is here tomorrow.
Huh?
Max
Tell
is here
him
tomorrow.
I said hello.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the best.
He's a knucklehead. I've known Max since he was 16
Didn't you
years
almost do their second record?
Yeah, no, I was supposed to produce their first record.
But then you fired somebody?
I fired my mixer on Afterglow and hired Andy Wallace, which was a really good move. And he took it personal because I did it myself, which I thought was the manly thing to do. But I should have had my A&R guy do it, and it would have been okay, apparently. But anyway, he was also their A&R guy at RCA. So,
okay.
But regardless of that, I've been a fan of the band for a long time. But my point was that they grew up. He wrote that song when he was 16. He wrote,
Inside Out. Yeah.
When he was 16. And that's what they got signed for. And that was a huge hit. And they've had a couple of minor hits since then, but not really anything other than that. And they had a hard time dealing with it because they came out of high school. They were waiting to tour to sign the contract for John, who we call Sweet Pea, the guitar player, because he was so young and he couldn't sign a contract, right? And he didn't want his parents to sign it for him, so they had to wait. And that whole perspective is totally different than your experience, and it's light years away from my experience. But just listening to Doug talk and listening to other people talk, it's interesting to me that even with the differences, that there's so many different things, comparisons, and so many things that we can relate to.
Your band's so interesting because you sort of had the pop moment with a song. Like, wouldn't you say your pop moment was really Father of Mine?
Wonderful.
Oh, that's right. A couple years later.
It's number 6 on the Hot 100.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So did you ever deal with that in terms of a fickle audience?
Yeah, because, like Doug was saying, people would that's when kids started showing up at shows with their parents, right? And which is really kind of twisted because it's about a kid going through, divorce from the kid's point of view. It's pretty twisted, but the rest of our set doesn't sound like that. Right. And we used to, I used to have keyboards and stuff to make it sound more like the record. We don't do that anymore. We're a 4-piece. We're a rock band. We are what we are. We play the song. We try to be true to the song, but at the same time, it's pretty balls out rock and roll. We've always been a rock and roll band, 100%. And and I think that I've gotten that same thing. Wow, you guys are a lot harder live. I also get that I look a lot taller on TV, so whatever that means.
Oh, you look taller on TV? I think you're taller in person.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I'm that big on TV, or maybe this big on your TV.
How big's your TV?
Yeah, TV. Yeah, that's what I should ask. How big's your TV, man?
Yeah, you got a drive-in or something?
Yeah.
I was reading that Wonderful actually was the Columbine High School class graduation song in 2000, of course, after the terrible shooting that happened there.
I've never heard that.
Really? Okay. I was wondering if you had any memories of it, but no, I never heard it.
Of the Columbine thing?
No, just of it being the graduation song that they chose for.
No, I didn't know that. I just got chills when you told me that, actually.
Yeah.
No, I remember when that went down.
Yeah.
It was in a theater. I was in a movie theater on tour, a day off, watching a movie, and they told everybody, about
in the
it.
Theater.
Yeah. I found out Kurt Cobain died. I was in a theater watching a movie, $3 matinee.
Right.
You should maybe stop going to see
Yeah,
movies.
man.
I know.
Well, can you let us know if you go to the movies anytime soon?
Wait a minute. Let's get into some serious conspiracy theories.
Maybe
that's why COVID happened, because now we can't go to movies
Yeah,
anymore.
this guy's about to be like, I was at a
All the
movie and they
movies
shut
are
down
on.
the
I was just
country.
going to say, wait, did you find out things were getting shut down in a movie theater? Now that we're, that's 3.
Yes.
So you're going to put the focus of the universe is on art, going to a movie theater.
We're living in your simulation, Art.
I've heard a lot worse explanations for life. So okay, whatever.
Take it.
But what was your question before we started talking silly stuff?
Oh no, I was just wonderful. And also, you did that really interesting thing with that record where you, instead of touring, I guess from what I've read, the label, of course, wanted to put you on the road. You said, instead of going down the road, I got all this unreleased material. I'm actually gonna do a volume 1 and a volume 2. And you kind of almost did the DMX thing, like front of the top of the year, end of the year. That's
not what I wanted to do. I wanted to put out a double record. I had the ego thing that I wanted to do a double record, and I wanted to do one of the albums more mellow, poppy type stuff, and the other record balls to the wall, or have soft song, hard song, soft song, hard song, soft song, hard song. That's what I wanted to do. My manager talked me out of it and into doing 2 records, even though my A&R guy didn't really want to do it. He goes, it could work, but it's probably going to be a career killer.
Yeah.
I don't think it killed my career, but I think it wasn't great, because I was tired by the time I made the second record. If of those 24, 25 songs on both records, we put out a volume 1 and volume 2 the same year. And if I'd have done one record of 20 songs, no filler, it would have been amazing.
Right.
Would have been great. And but I got talked out of it because managers, no offense, brother, managers get paid now. They don't get paid on your future. They don't look at that like that. Some do, most don't.
Right.
And that's the problem, is if he puts out 2 records, 1, I get out of my publishing deal so I can renegotiate a new publishing deal, and 2, he gets paid on 2 records. That initial advance percentage.
Right.
For a double record, he wouldn't. And we'd still be in a publishing deal, and we wouldn't be able to renegotiate at the time. So it was a long story. I agreed to it. It's a regret that I wish I had, and I wish I put out the 2 records. But that being said, it was fun to do.
Yeah.
And Wonderful was a song that I wrote last minute, really, right before we mixed the record. I wrote that song, and I gave it to
That's really last minute.
Huh?
That's really last minute.
It's. I mean, we were still in the studio. We were we were tour record. You know the drill. Tour record. off for 2 weeks in Hawaii with your family. Tour, record, and the whole time people
Why
are
is it
calling
always
me.
often? I was like, that sounds almost too specific. I'm like,
Because-
to record in Hawaii with your family when they tell you, you got to write one more song, go back into the studio.
Because it's right there.
Yeah.
It's right there. It's 5-hour flight.
Yeah.
You know, it's right there. And if you're a West Coast guy, and we are, that's where you go.
Totally.
You don't go to the Virgin Islands. You don't go to Jamaica. I've been to those places, but Hawaii's easy.
Yeah.
It's right there. And, you get in this cycle of record, tour. And I wrote this song. I was going through a divorce with my eldest daughter, and I was starting to see things in her that I remembered in me from when I went through my parents' divorce. And it was pretty devastating for me. And that's where that song came from, writing from her point of view, And it was funny because I told I had the music for about a couple of weeks that I had written the song and played it for the guys I worked with and guys in the band. And this guy who did who was a friend of mine who was like a co-producer and did a lot of the Pro Tools stuff, was like, wow, what's the name of this song? I go, Wonderful. And he's like, finally, you've written a positive, uplifting, happy song.
That Art presses play.
Yes.
Yeah. And then,
You're
no.
Sure. Here.
No, I played it for him.
Yeah.
I played it for him. And he sat there and looked at it, and he's smiling at first, and then he's like, and then, I don't know if I could say it, or you could bleep it out, but then he's like, I finished the song. I go, so what do you think? You still excited about the song? He goes, that's a great song. Fuck you. And he walks away. But it is what it is, man.
One number 6 on the pop charts, man.
Yeah. I try to write happy songs.
Yeah.
I try. I did. I wrote AM Radio. I thought that was a happy song.
That is a nice song.
Whatever. It's fun.
Doug, you got to tell me the story of you and Britney Spears and a solar eclipse.
Oh, shit. Really?
It's not even a story. How does that even come up somewhere? I live in Agora, which is about 45 minutes from here. The neighboring communities are Calabasas and stuff like that. So there's a lot of like celebrities and musicians and people who live out there. I go to like a mom and pop gym. I've been there forever. I don't know. When was the last like full solar eclipse? I don't even remember.
Gotta look it up.
Like 2 years ago, 3
It was a few years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, so somewhat recently.
Yeah, I was like, how does that even? Why is that? I feel like I just told my wife that or something,
There was a lunar eclipse about a month ago,
No, it was a
right?
solar
Yeah.
eclipse. I remember. I come out of the gym and somebody, I forget, it might have been even my kid from school. Hey, these are some glasses that you could wear because you obviously know it's coming. And so I'm out there in the parking lot, just kind of like, oh yeah, like that. And then I feel like, can I borrow those? And it was Britney Spears. Not much of a story. It's kind of even silly,
That's you don't think that's an interesting story?
I think it's cute.
It's Thank
Is
you.
that what's
Yeah,
cute?
I was like something I told my wife, like, hey, I was did you see the clips? No, yeah, you know who borrowed my glasses or something? Britney Spears. She goes to the gym too. That's cool.
So is that not your most interesting celebrity?
It is. I'm sorry.
Is it? No, is it? I mean, no, because sometimes when you cross over, you have the pop crossover moment. You have these weird moments back in the day.
Here's the thing with me. I've been notorious. This has also been a strength of mine and probably a weakness, depending on who you ask. I never get too excited about things. And I never get too mad or upset about things. Super even keel. Like I said, sometimes it works out great, and sometimes people are like, "Why do you not care?" I'm like, "No, I do care. I show it in different ways,
Yeah.
So my like silly celebrity stories or whatever, which is what I would classify that as, hardly a story. I a lot of times I just forget.
Right.
They don't go into the file in my brain that goes, you should tell somebody this. This is
Like, this
interesting.
is an important
Yeah,
thing.
this is interesting
Right.
because I don't care. I just don't care.
Right.
Like I ran into XYZ and we did this and whatever. Cool.
Right.
Well, I don't
Another
know.
day
That-
at the job.
I don't think it's not that. I don't see it that way. Like this happens to me all the time, so therefore I don't care.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
understand that something like that happening is kind of unusual,
Mhm.
but on the scale of important things, like
Yeah.
it's nothing. It doesn't
Doesn't go
matter.
in that cabinet.
I agree with that, and I think a lot of times with me, I just don't remember.
Really?
I just don't remember.
But you're a confrontational guy. You ever get into it back in the day with some big name?
No, people, would never confront me because I think they were scared of me.
The reputation.
But like Gavin from Bush would say mean things about me because I think my bass player, who had a drug and alcohol problem at the time and is now clean, that bass player, I think he would say things negative, you know, or someone told a story about something that happened backstage with the banana. We don't want to get into that, but and then they would talk trash about me, and I'm like, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. I like your band. I don't have a problem with you. You know, I'm not that guy. I don't bad talk people. I refuse to bad talk people. I've got lots of stories about celebrities and famous women I've slept with. You're not going to hear it. I don't talk about it.
Steel trap.
No, man, I don't talk. I wasn't raised that way.
Right.
I don't talk about stuff like that. But then again, a lot of times I don't remember it. Like, we got asked to case in point. You know, I'm 59 years old. One of my favorite bands growing up was, of course, Beatles, Rolling Stones, Zeppelin, bands like that before punk rock happened. And so I'm a huge Stones fan. And we got asked to play a show with the Rolling Stones and Metallica. And
that sounds terrible.
It was awesome. And it didn't pay much. Who cared?
Yeah, who
It was
cares?
2 shows at the PG, and it was what was called PG&A, the PG&E, the baseball park in San Francisco, right?
Yeah.
And we played to a half-filled house, which was 32,000 people.
Wow.
You know, and I met Mick, and I'm like, dude, I'm a huge fan. He goes, what are you talking about, man? We've met like 3 times before. Don't you remember? We met this time, and I go, oh, yeah. And we met this time. I didn't remember meeting Mick Jagger.
How do you not remember meeting Mick Jagger?
And people would think, oh, God, he's so arrogant.
You're so
I'm not arrogant. I'm just not.
Right. There's certain things
I'm not the smartest
on the day-to-day
tool.
that
Yeah.
go into, like I said, into that file in your head that goes, you should tell somebody about this.
Right.
And I think maybe for someone like you, whether it's memory or not, or like myself, a certain threshold has to be met. And a lot of it, most people's might be here. And for mine, it's
Right.
like, it's got to be
Yeah.
pretty.
Well, you get so desensitized to it, you know?
Yeah, but I'm not. Yes and no. But I'm not. No, I'm not desensitized to meeting Mick Jagger. Right?
Well, you clearly were to some extent. 'cause
No,
you
I
forgot
wasn't.
about
I
it.
just didn't remember. He hit me up.
I'm sorry, Mick.
I'm sorry, Mick. No, Mick's awesome. I met him at the 1998 MTV Music Awards, which was here in LA.
Okay.
And he came up to me in the dark, and I'm like, "Hey, man, what's going on?" And then someone was like, comes up and asks for an autograph, and he's like, "Oh, here," and he goes to do it. And I always heard that he didn't do autographs, but he's like, "No, I want his, mine."
Yeah.
And
So
then
Mick Jagger-
I'm like, here, dude.
Did you sign Mick
What's
Jagger?
your name? What's your name? He goes, Mick. I go, and then I see him. Then the lights come on, right? And I see him, or something happens on stage. It's Mick Jagger, and his daughter is a huge fan and wants to meet me.
No.
He's a huge fan of the band, and I meet him and take pictures with him, and totally forgot about it. And then, I don't know, 7 years later, you know, I take a picture with him. We play, and I'm not apathetic about that at all. I'll brag and show you pictures right now of us with the Rolling Stones.
Right.
That's a big deal to me.
Yeah.
Meeting Jimmy Page, meeting Robert Plant, big deal. But I just sometimes don't remember because a lot of it is I'm sure if I was a kid I would get diagnosed as having ADD or ADHD. They tried to put me on Ritalin when I was a kid. My mom wouldn't let them, you know. But I was always that guy, you know. Am I on the spectrum? I think most people are on the spectrum,
Right.
especially kids 10 to 12 years old. Or at least they act like they're on the spectrum.
Yeah.
Most of them, you know. So I think a lot of that is that for me, but I have gotten I'm a little nonplussed sometimes when it comes to that because I've come to the belief that glamour isn't a real thing. It's created by publicists.
Yeah.
You know.
Perception.
Yeah. I mean, I've been at red carpets where I've seen people who are like famous couples, like screaming at each other, pushing each other, calling each other horrible names, and then they walk out in front of the cameras and they're like,
all smiley.
Yeah, and it just kind of kills my soul a little bit to be that fake.
Yeah.
I'm not good at it.
Can't do it. Doug, what I thought was really cool, I was reading about the release of the Reason album, and you guys, I don't know if you have any memories of this. You put out the first single as a download as well on your website.
Okay.
I don't know if that was like a management thing at the time, but I thought it was pretty cool for 04 or 03 at the time.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't remember that.
Do you remember? Do you remember your sort of feelings about file sharing and your feelings about the internet at the time as a band? Did you embrace it?
I don't know. I mean, I was in the 90s. I was on, Napster and whatever sources. I mean, I wasn't like computer savvy by any means, but that was the best way I can get like import Faith No More songs. Like that's basically how I could do it. Those are the only channels, like, because the record store I worked at, it took weeks to get it, and then their catalog was tiny. So somebody shows me, hey, you can get these this way, and so I remember doing that. I wasn't those who, like, one of those who just had libraries of like downloaded music, especially back then.
Yeah.
But yeah, honestly, I don't really remember how I felt at the time as far as, everything shifting to being downloaded.
Well, and as a working musician, just the piracy conversation, you didn't really have a take on it?
I don't know. I honestly, I can't remember how I felt at the time.
Yeah.
I probably felt like you're trying to fight the tide, like try to keep the tide from coming in. I remember record companies being terrified about it.
Rightfully so.
Yeah, I remember one of the guys going, you know what the answer is for all the the downloading now is, like, basically to raise the price of like CD sales. He's like, it shouldn't be $9.90, it shouldn't be $15.90, it should be $29.99. Like, and their thought process behind this was like, because if you pay more, it's like you pay more for it, you're gonna value it more. I was just going, yeah, let's not do that with ours, please. Yeah, let's not do that.
Skip the Hoobastank
That's
CD.
a cool idea. You could try it somebody else, But yeah, I don't remember at the time. I don't remember doing that specifically. And like I said, I probably just was like, it doesn't even really matter at this point what I think of it. It's happening.
Yeah.
Either I can figure out a way to make it work, or I can sit here and bitch and moan about it, or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
did you see it coming, Art? The internet?
Yeah.
Did you like it?
Yeah, no.
Did it scare the hell out of you?
No, because I didn't. Yes and no. The no was bigger because I would get into it at like conferences. I was always asked, I was an A&R guy too at the same time while I was signed to Capitol as an artist. And then I had my own label through Danny Goldberg and all that and stuff. So I was constantly doing that and asked to speak at these, South by Southwest and all sorts of different music conferences. And they would always put me with Sean Napster, and we would get into it. Because he was like under the idea that, because of the technology, music ownership is now open to everybody. He would make these grand statements, right? And he's like this 24-year-old kid, and I go, so basically if I create something where I can create a loaf of bread, then I can feed everybody for pennies. He goes, exactly. I go, except for the people who grow grain and make bread. So what about them? He goes, well, they're just going to have to find something else to do. It was that thing. I'm saying, so you learned a way to steal my music. You're calling it sharing. Mm-hmm. I'm calling it stealing, because sharing has got to be a thing where I go, hey man, Doug, you want to hear this? Right. That's sharing.
Yeah.
Him taking it from me without asking, that's not sharing.
Right.
I don't see how you could use that in the word, and I would say that, and we would get into it. I knew the yes part of it is I liked the fact that it was coming out and that people should be able to just get music and listen to it without having to, go to record stores, even though that was something I still love to do. Mm-hmm. I really love to do that, and it was something growing up I loved to do, I was cool with that going away, as I was with the album and the CD box and all that stuff. That's technology. That's just progress, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the whole ownership aspect, and I still have problems with it today, the way it breaks down for Spotify and for Pandora and people like that. Artists don't get paid.
Yeah.
Get paid
It's a different world. It's a different business.
We get paid pennies.
Fractions of pennies.
Fractions of pennies.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when our last record came out in 2015, we did a thing with Pandora and with Spotify, and in 1 week, the whole record was listened to, streamed 2.5 million times. I think I made like $1,500 on that.
Wow.
Really? I mean, I don't care about getting rich, but I want to be able to make a living.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not it anymore. Now the way we make a living is by touring.
You guys
touring and hopefully merch.
Right.
That's it.
Doug, you ever think about if you were, let's say you're 15 years old today,
Okay.
if you'd even want to get into music? Because it's just changed so much. I mean, it's like TikTok really is in so many ways the gateway to any sort of success
really
in music.
Strange, isn't that?
Well,
weird?
like Jim Atkins was on the show from Jimmy Eat World,
Okay.
and he's like, dude, and he was kind of vegging out on the idea too. He's like, man, like that's writing jingles, and he's like, I
Right.
don't want to write jingles, and I don't want to, and we were talking off air in the green room about people vlogging and being me, and kind of like it's a generational shift. But
Yeah.
do you ever think about that, like the things that attracted you?
Well, yeah, my daughter's 10, and if at any point, or my son who's 7, in the next 5 to 10 years, they really started getting into music and wanted to do it. Who am I to say that they can't?
Right.
That would be ridiculous. But the landscape is very different. Yeah, it's night and day. I wouldn't even at this point. I wouldn't even know like how do we. I mean, I have my hunches about what we need to do. But I feel like if they asked me, I would be like, okay, almost like you, Art. You got to go to Kinko's and you got to make a shit ton of fucking flyers, and then we're gonna go and cut out cardboard things, and we're gonna duct these things for shows on stop signs by the high school, and then we're gonna put flyers in everybody's lockers, and because that's what we did, and
That's what you did.
yeah, and we handed out demo cassettes that I used to dub. We'd gather as many of our parents' stereos that had twin cassette things, and we dub these tapes.
Horrible.
Yeah, terrible. Terrible. They're terrible, but we give them away. We outside of shows, we're giving these things away and whiskey. And so I'm like, that's what you should do. But obviously, that's not what you should do. There's so many other things you could do now besides that. So I don't even know what I would tell my kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. People ask me for advice in the music business now, and I'm like, I really don't understand the music business.
It's totally different.
Yeah. How are you gonna make a living?
I think you should be good at what you do, and you should believe in it, and you should have all these things.
Yeah.
But other than that, the actual like mechanical thing of like putting your music out there is so drastically different. It was for me compared to what you guys were doing, but still similar.
It's in the same ballpark. Yeah.
You guys were like a lot of bands that I know, like the band Live. They all grew up together, in York, Pennsylvania, and just that's how they knew each other. They started their band in junior high school. One of them still called junior high school before it became middle school. That shows you, and it's like it was a different thing, but the similarities are still there. Now in 2021,
It's like unrecognizable.
I don't really know.
In so many
it's
ways.
like, do bands still tour like that don't have deals with TikTok or YouTube?
Well, now you have people that have #1 records on like the pop charts that are struggling to sell tickets.
Of course they are.
I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's a totally different business. But
that it's always been that's been around for a long time.
Oh,
Like
really?
MTV bands would sell records, but they couldn't sell tickets. Hip hop for many years could sell records, but not sell tickets.
sell tickets.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was a big thing.
You guys can obviously sell tickets, and I want to talk about Summerland really quick before we let you guys go.
Right before we let us go.
Yeah. Anyways, what are you guys doing?
This is, I mean, kind of, obviously last year with the pandemic we took off, but this has been going on now since 2012 with you sort of running point there on it.
Yeah.
2012. Yeah. And what do you make of, both of you guys collectively, what do you make of sort of this immense 90s and early 2000s nostalgia? Is it something from your perspective that has always been around? You know what I mean? Where maybe in the 90s people were nostalgic for the 70s or 60s or whatever. Or is it a fever pitch now that you're even surprised by?
No, I think it's very predictable and cyclical.
Really?
Yeah. I used to say that, like, writing, I'm like, just give it time, dude. You know, guitars will be back. They just come around. It's going to come around. If you can take a step back, if you know, because you're obviously in it when you're touring and writing and touring and stuff like that. But if you can kind of take a step back and look at it and go, it's just everything, you know, old is new again. And so it doesn't surprise me that, I mean, I don't have my finger on the pulse as much as you might, as far as saying like there's a fever, for like a thirst for that kind of like 90s, 2000 era music. But I noticed, yeah, there's definitely a nostalgic, yearning, I guess. I don't know what you call it. That a lot of these people from that generation, from my generation and stuff like that, that, want to hear it again, or it's okay to be a fan of those bands of that era again, you know? But I think it's just cyclical, you know, like you said, like bands from the 90s listen to bands from the 70s. Like,
right.
I get it.
That's what we grew up with.
That's what it is. Yeah.
But you know, I agree with Doug for all of that, but I would add to it that when I started this thing, you know, that was the question I got was, so is this just a nostalgia tour? I go, no, it's not a nostalgia tour, but I think nostalgia to a certain extent is healthy and good and comfortable. And seeing people at the shows, you're going to see people at the shows who are going to like break down and cry when they start singing, you know, your hits and stuff like that. That's why it's in the contract that you got to play your hits and they got to sound like your hits.
How do you word that in a contract?
Flat out. Artists must perform.
Do you name the songs?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Shit, I gotta redo our set list.
Yeah, you do.
Man, that'd be great.
I would play all even though I would love,
yeah.
Doug, I would
I
love to
play
have.
the hits,
I
yeah.
would love to have a house in Agoura Hills, so you don't really need to change.
It's it's a nice area. I don't have the biggest house.
Anyway, doesn't matter. These days, any house.
Yes,
Yeah.
especially
Oh my
here.
God.
Yeah.
That is a great troll job though, when you book somebody with a big catalog and a known catalog and they show up. Like I remember Stephen Jenkins from Third Eye Blind showed up on the same show you were on back in the day, and we didn't have a contract like that, but there's a little bit of an expectancy. You have very
Right.
big hits.
You know what? Even if it wasn't in the contract, I don't know why I wouldn't be like, hey, I'm gonna play a bunch of deep cuts nobody knows. You know,
No,
Right.
there are I've had those bands.
I understand
I've had those
the
bands.
urge, because there was a time that we as a band were sick of playing the singles. And
Right.
like, dude, there's a bunch of songs we fucking love that we enjoy playing, even if it's just in a room together.
Well.
You know, we want to play those, and
Yeah.
and we would do that, and then after a few times we go, you know what, it doesn't. It feels good, but it's not making for a good show.
Yeah.
But, you know.
But my whole idea when I started this tour was to pattern it after, in the late 90s, early 2000s, the radio shows, you know, where you'd have 20
that's smart.
bands.
It's very smart.
You know, and they would come out and play. You play your
Hit after
current
hit
hit,
after hit,
you play
yeah.
some hits, you play a couple fan favorites, go deep on a song, play a new song, boom. Literally, the hook would come out and get you. K-Rock, they had a revolving stage. When you were done, you were done.
Oh,
dude.
Weenie Roast, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Weenie Roast and Acoustic
Christmas.
Christmas, which was never acoustic. And it was just like, it would start revolving. And Oasis would be behind you.
Yeah,
Seriously?
yeah, I remember.
Father, whoa. and it was like, but I love the fact that the fans won. You know, they were the winners here,
Right.
because they got to hear all these songs that had brought them into the band in the first place. So there'll be Hoobastank fans, there'll be Everclear fans, there's going to be Living Color fans, right here you got Living Color fans.
Living Color fans,
Dude,
yeah.
people, just I got to say this. Every night when they're playing, you're going to see men in their 40s and 50s
Yes.
on the side of the stage playing air guitar to Cult of Personality. I'm going to be doing it for the whole record because I know that the first 2 records, every song, every lyric, I know them by heart, right? But I mean, that's how much fun is that for us as musicians to be
So
able to
cool.
connect and people out in the crowd to be able to connect on that. That's why I wanted to do this tour. And we've had a blast, and it's been pretty successful that we're still doing it after 8 years.
Oh yeah.
You
I
know?
don't think it's going anywhere.
Huh?
I don't think it's going anywhere.
Well, we'll see. I mean, but we're branching out now. Living Color is not from the 90s; they're from the late 80s.
Right.
Most of your success was in the early 2000s,
yeah.
right? So it's branching out because a lot of the bands from the 90s who I tried to get to do it are like, oh, we're not a 90s band. We're a band that transcends that. And I'm like,
Cool.
it's cool, dude.
All right, dude.
It's good to, as my ex-wife used to say, it's good to believe things.
Yeah.
You want to believe that? Go ahead. Go out and play a show and don't play your hits. Right. See what happens.
See what goes on.
You're going to make people unhappy who are paying money to see you. And yeah, I play Santa Monica. I play Father Mine. I play Wonderful. I play AM Radio. I play all these songs, right? I'll Buy You a New Life. Everything to Everyone. I'm proud that I had hits because I wasn't trying to write hits. I was trying to write great songs that fit on the record. And I still feel like they do. And that was my accomplishment. And we had success. Same thing with you guys. You listen to your records. I think that your hits fit into your records 100%. It's just a different aspect of you of what you guys are as a band. You weren't trying to write a hit. There are bands that try to write hits. Most of the time that doesn't work. And the bands that are signed for one single, the labels, them giving you a chance, the whole apparatus, labels, MTV Radio, giving you a chance at a second single, they'll give you a chance. But if you don't, if that one doesn't take, if that spaghetti doesn't stick against the wall,
see you later.
Oh, there's someone right behind you.
Yeah.
There you
got
go.
more bowls of spaghetti
Oh, yeah.
to chuck.
Well, the tour kicks off. Is it the first? Yeah, the first. It looks like in Boston. Right on. And
House
then
of
it's
Blues.
yeah, which is gonna be awesome. You're doing
gonna
New
be awesome.
York, Texas. I'm looking at all these stations. Chicago, of course. Yeah, this is great.
Right.
And then, of course, SummerlandTour.net is where anyone can go that's watching this right now and check it out.
There's 2 legs of the tour. There's the first leg, which we're about to embark on now.
Yeah.
And then we're going to come back in September, October, and do more dates as well. And those are being released as they're confirmed.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, go to there, and you can go to any of our websites. I'm sure you guys have all the tour dates and stuff up like that.
It's a nice warm-up for the whiskey show in November, dude. That's going to be awesome.
I know, right?
That's going to be crazy.
Should be fun.
Yeah.
What's this about whiskey?
Oh,
He's
we
doing
have,
whiskey for the 20th.
November 20th is the exact 20th anniversary date of the release of our debut album. So we're doing a show at the
Are you
whiskey
going to do the
on-
whole album?
Yes, doing
Oh,
that. The
how
debut
exciting.
album at
Yeah.
the
Can I
Whiskey.
come?
Absolutely.
No, November 20th.
Yeah, November 20th.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's right before Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
the week of.
Nice little homecoming.
Is it? It's a Saturday, I think.
Is it? I
Yeah,
didn't look.
it's the Saturday before Thanksgiving
Yes.
because I think Thanksgiving's later.
All right.
Yeah, dude, I'll be home.
I
Absolutely.
love that Art knows the day of the week but doesn't remember meeting Mick Jagger. Oh,
He's
yeah,
a
the
big-
20th?
Hey, he's a big
That's a
Thanksgiving
Saturday.
fan. He loves his turkey.
I love my turkey.
Yeah.
So dig this. So in 2019, I got diagnosed in 2016 that I have multiple sclerosis, and I supposedly had it for 20 years and stuff like that. I didn't talk about it till 2019. I put it out there, and these people came to me. This doctor, famous doctor, has got all these books and stuff like that, and these retreats, and he's like, I can cure your MS, and it'll only cost you $30,000. I'm like, wow, how are you going to do that? And he's like, you go on this diet for 9 months, and all the lesions on your brain and spine will be gone. Okay, so I have to be vegan, hardcore vegan. I mean, it's rough, dude, rough. And I did it for 9 months. And the date that the 9 months was over, I went and got an MRI. My lesions weren't gone. I wasn't cured. And that was lockdown had happened for COVID like 4 days earlier, and I went home, and my wife's like, "What do you want for dinner?" I go, "I want a hamburger." Really bad.
Yes.
Really bad.
Double.
And I put on the COVID-15. I've been working it off.
Right.
I've been swimming it off.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just stoked for this tour for just the camaraderie that always happens on this tour. I mean, we come into it. Living Color is like, they're older guys, and I think there's going to be a sense of awe from all the other bands.
Sure.
I mean, it's Living Color. And
I don't think it's going to be a sense. Mine's going to be worn right on my face, like.
Yeah, I'm going to try and play it cool. But I've met Vernon at NAMM and different places and stuff like that. And I'm always like, I really have to work hard not to fanboy, And I'm a guy who's been pretty fairly successful in the business. I still feel like that 24-year-old, 25-year-old kid that I remember a friend of mine who's wasn't really a friend of a friend who's super pretentious and read in zines about Living Color, and we went down and bought the record at Tower Records in San Francisco, right? And we listened to it, and he doesn't like it, and I'm like, I love that. How much you want for that? He's like, oh, I paid $6. I go, I'll give you $5 for it. Brand new cassette, and wore it out, right? Same thing with the Pixies. He bought the Pixies Surfer Rosa, didn't like it, fell in love with it, bought it, and became one of my favorite bands. And I think it's fair to say alternative music wouldn't sound the same if it wasn't for the Pixies.
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, Nirvana would tell you that for sure.
Totally.
But I just like, that excitement.
Well, it's contagious. Like the fans will feel it too. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well, people are there because they want to be there. Right now, what we're running up against in some markets, like Boston, I'd say about 2/3 of the markets, ticket sales are pretty good. And then 1/3 of the markets, we're working on it. Or I'm putting more money into, putting ads out there and social media stuff to get the sales up, because it's just like, a lot of people are afraid of COVID.
Yeah.
And a lot of states are just opening up.
Yeah.
Massachusetts just started letting bands, like we only booked that gig like a little over a month ago, right?
Yeah.
And the other shows have been on sale for a month already. And it was just like, because Live Nation was like, nope, no shows till September. No shows till September. Right. And then people's up, the mucky mucks in the business, in the company, were like, no, you should open up. You should sell tickets. And then they're like, we got to sell tickets. We got to have shows. And we're like, hi.
We're ready.
Do us.
Awesome.
So,
all right, Doug. Thanks for coming by, dude.
Thank you for having us.
Pleasure.
Thanks for having me, man.
This is
Appreciate
awesome.
It. Yeah. It's great to meet. I think we've played radio shows.
I was going to say,
have you guys never met?
I just don't remember.
No, but like heading into this tour, you guys have never met?
Didn't you had really short blonde hair at one time, right? Didn't you?
I mean, that might have been prior to. No, actually, I did not too long ago, a few years ago.
I remember like at a show, there was different bands, and I remember being on the side of the stage and watching them play, and people are like, "You got to go do this interview. You got to do this interview." I go, "No, I want to see him play. I want to see him play the hit." I always love seeing what the crowd does. Like the first tour that we ever went on was with Sponge.
Right.
After we got signed, our first bus tour, it was a horrible old Eagle bus, but we were so stoked. We felt like rock stars. And I would always watch when they played Plowed, because that was their big hit at the time. And the way people's face would just go, like it was just this transformation of communal excitement, everyone feeling it. And there was like a palpable thing you could feel in the room when they played that everyone could connect with. And I loved being a part of that then, and I still love being a part of it now. Yeah, so you'll see me on the side of the stage for everybody.
It's probably logistically impossible for us to have not played shows together.
At some point,
20 years.
Yeah.
But I'm not the best with like remembering all that kind of stuff. So
this is the first time.
I guarantee our paths have crossed, and we've probably talked and whatever at some point. But this is more of an official like, hey,
wow,
what's up, man?
Yeah. Well, we're we're gonna be
Glad
spending
we could
next
do it
month
for you.
again. We're gonna see each other just
He's
about
gonna be
every
doing
day.
air guitar. I'm gonna be singing, the Living Color song. So we gotta get our shit coordinated here.
Exactly.
So you're gonna be singing the Black Militant lyrics on the side of the stage.
I want to sing. I want to sing "Type." I think I was just singing.
That's a
on the way
great.
here.
That's the first single off Time's Up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
off the second album.
song.
Yeah, that's a great song. Yeah, there's so many songs on that first record that you know.
It's good stuff,
I mean,
man.
I'm just nervous. I'd be nervous to go out and sing it with them. I mean, I hope I get asked, but I'd be.
Just put that in the contract.
No, we're gonna be going no
Play
me on the side of the stage.
No,
Laughing at each other like
I'm gonna
kids.
stand next to
Yeah,
Doug
yeah.
doing like,
Yeah.
kill him, take him. Anyway, thanks for having us, brother.
Yeah.